So,
Wait, hey, do you know if that guy's German? Sven is
I
like
do know. Yeah, I
okay,
do know.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. Hey everyone, it's Elliot.
And Todd, welcome to Two Designers Walk Into a Bar, an ongoing conversation about pop culture and iconic design. Today we continue our series on Tiki Culture.
We look at how professional designers embraced and evolved the tiki aesthetic.
A symbol of exotic adventure, a goofy gimmick. Was it lowbrow, highbrow?
Wait a second, did you just say Lowenbrow? I'm not sure that's a tiki beer.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. I'm just trying to figure out the price of these amazing drinks.
Ooh, okay. Well, while you're doing that, let's get some quarters sticky with pineapple juice as we throw some exotica on the old jukebox.
And join us as we hula back into the bar. All right, so Elliot,
Yeah.
in our last episode, we talked about the origins, and I thought this one would be great to show how that tiki movement had a deeper imprint on graphic, interior fashion, product, architectural design, both the kitsch and the high concept.
I'll admit I'm a couple Mai Tais in, so I'm having tiki movements right now.
Oh my. Okay, well, let me do just a real quick recap of the last episode, just for you, okay?
What? Last episode?
Yeah. So we talked about the historical context and the emergence of tiki culture. It was influenced by the GIs coming back from World War II. Veterans brought back stories and artifacts from locations like Hawaii and the South Pacific. The GI Bill enabled travel and suburban growth, fueling these themed home entertainments. And we met some foundational figures and some spaces. Don Beach, known as Don the Beachcomber. He created a new type of restaurant genre, and Trader Vic Bergeron popularized the Mai Tai and other Polynesian themed chains.
I'm vaguely remembering this now.
Yeah, okay. So let me mention one quick thing. You know how I love a pop culture thread, right?
You do.
Okay, all right. So do you know of a fruit punch beverage that might be influenced by this?
By what?
By Tiki South Pacific culture?
Only one? I mean,
Well, I bet. Well, okay. So I'm thinking of Hawaiian Punch.
oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. I love when stuff kind of ties together. And that was invented in 1959. And a few years later, they created their mascot, Punchy. Remember Punchy's famous line?
Punchy.
Well, the voice of Punchy was a guy named Ross Martin. Does that name sound familiar?
Not offhand.
That was Artemis Gordon on the Wild Wild West.
That's okay. That's great.
Isn't that wild?
That's
Isn't that
so
wild?
funny. Okay. Wow.
I love when that stuff ties together. Okay, let's get
That's
back
a whole
to
episode. We could let's just call it quits right now. I mean, that's such a
I
big
know, there
nugget.
you go.
I think we can be done.
Yeah. But I want to tell you a little bit more about the influence on professional design. And, we mentioned in the last episode, Hawaii became a state in 1959.
Mm-hmm.
That obviously kicked interest in Polynesian culture into high gear. It was a U.S. territory before then. So people were very familiar, and Hawaii equaled exotic. And jet travel was becoming more and more mainstream. So people were traveling.
Yeah. Boom. Hawaii becomes a state. Boom. You have a way to get there in a handful of hours, right? You don't need to take a ship or anything. Yeah.
Right. And risk, scurvy and all those other things
That's
that you're
the
going to get
worst.
out on the open
Yeah.
ocean.
That reminds me, I need to order another drink with some citrus to make sure, Todd, that scurvy doesn't, you can't be too careful.
Whatever you got to tell yourself. But that's...
Well, really, I'm more interested in telling you that.
Oh, okay. Well, And also in the past episode, we talked a little bit about how the GI Bill enabled sort of this expansion into suburbia. Money was a little bit more plentiful. We had gone through Prohibition, a Great Depression, a World War. So while there was anxiety about the Cold War, the suburban lifestyle was being kind of disconnected more and more as they got into these fantasy spaces, and Tiki was a big part of that.
Okay, so let's jump in. So you mentioned that Tiki really influenced so many corners of pop culture. So let's start with graphic design. How about that?
Okay.
So when I think about Tiki's influence on graphic design, I think about things like, exotic typography and lettering, these fun spot illustrations, things like that. And in our last episode, you'd mentioned things like menu design or sign design, these immersive environments. So this, I think, to some degree, there were no real rules. I mean, there was from a design perspective, there was visual hierarchy rules, but there weren't formal.
Right.
No one said, oh, here's the Tiki manual, right?
Right.
So if you think about this idea of exotic, quote unquote, by virtue of the name, it wasn't something that was seen all the time, right?
Right.
So these typefaces were wavy, they were carved, they were sort of this primitive, quote unquote, look, right? So an extension of the native art that was being seen, the Tiki figures and these patterns and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Just thinking about it, for those of you, we'll put some examples on our episode page, obviously, but thinking about to someone coming in who might be new to this, how would you describe the look? So I would say it would be these hand-drawn typefaces, and they define things like bar signs and menus, right? So you gotta lure people in with a little bit of intrigue and exoticism, and then you've got to entertain them once they're in there, right?
Right.
So this lettering was imitating things like carved wood, or it was made out of strands of bamboo. And I think about one of these prototype immersive environments. I think there was a place in Beverly Hills for a few decades, maybe the 50s through 70s, the luau, right?
Yes.
When I was doing a little bit of research on this, I really loved. I mean, you can still get T-shirts even today for this place, and it closed in the late 70s.
Yeah.
So it definitely had a look that had some shelf life, which is what we love.
Yes.
And the lettering, and we'll obviously put this on our website, but the lettering was far from perfect, but it was very charming and very sort of kitschy.
Yeah.
Very much a vernacular, right? It was selling an idea.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talked before in the previous episode about since this movement started in Southern California and Hollywood especially, there was a bit of show in that business. And you could start to see the influence of Tiki showing up in movie titles as early as 1937's rom-com Waikiki Wedding, and then a drama like Paradise Isle. They were starting to use these sort of non-traditional, non-Roman typefaces, which was really interesting. And, it really sort of picked up steam from there, and it just kind of rolled, and it spread until about 1980. The last one, that was sort of that trend was the movie Blue Lagoon.
Oof. Yeah, I can't think of a better movie to ruin what was an interesting trend.
Yeah, well, it had to stop sometime. I guess that was it. But
Those the blue harpoon. Right through the heart of cool typography.
Right. And we had also mentioned music of the time, surf music, exotica, and the album art for those exotica music masters like Martin Denny's Forbidden Island, which came out in 58, Primitiva, which came out in 59, Hypnotique in 1959 also. They were so cool. And think about, we're going to post pictures of all these.
Yeah.
Arthur Lineman's Taboo and Hawaiian Sunset and everything from Les Baxter, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And we could do a whole episode on Les Baxter's groovy album art.
Well, that would tie right into both our love of music and our love of kitsch, right?
That's right.
And then, as we mentioned last time in our last episode, I think, there is this mid-90s Tiki revival. And there's a great design shop, really typography shop out of Delaware, another exotic tiki capital that we're all aware of.
Right.
These guys called House Industries. If folks are listening and don't know who they are, look them up. They're absolutely amazing. They developed these fonts many, many years ago, back in the 90s during this time, to capture tiki's playful and faux tribal energy. You can still get these typefaces today. We'll put a link to that on our website, to their website. And these designs echo what we were just talking about, these carved lines, exaggerated shapes. And they also had these bonus funky illustrations that were of the little figurines, the little idols that you'd find in tiki decor. Right. So they really leaned into it, leveraged it, and did an amazing job with it.
Yeah. And, we'll talk a little bit more in our next episode. So a little prelude of that. And that it was sort of this resurgence in the 90s. And House Industries typography was a big part of that. And at the time, pre-90s, back in the heyday of Tiki Culture, you would see imagery that the palette was, as you would expect, these sunset oranges and deep sea blues and beiges that look like sand and jungle greens. And you would see textured backgrounds that would mimic tapa cloth or bamboo weave. And of course, you said this earlier about the house design fonts. You'd see this repeated use of moai statues and what we would call tikis, but they were statues, obviously. Outrigger canoes and volcanoes and floral patterns. And anyway, menus from tiki bars, which were really the ambassadors of tiki culture in the beginning, they featured these lush illustrations of cocktails and Polynesian landscapes and hula
maps, things like that.
Yeah. Hula girls. And that really set the standard for theme dining design to come.
Okay, so speaking of that, you had mentioned that Don the Beachcomber and Trader Vic, frenemies, I guess, of tiki culture, they really kicked off this trend of theme dining with these immersive environments and these illustrative menus. Okay. So this idea of these all-encompassing visuals, I would say it must have bled out, right? Like these other restaurants certainly weren't sitting on the sidelines and just kind of shrugging their shoulders. They were incorporating that into their supper clubs and their cabarets as well. I would think, right?
To create a more immersive environment.
Yeah, and to be a little bit more exotic. Like we can be exotic too, right? Sure. So I think about all the ephemera from that era that you can still find online now or has been captured lovingly on books or websites or whatever, right? These things like postcards, coasters, cocktail napkins, matchbooks, swizzle sticks, placemats. And, a lot of these were things that were designed to be taken away. And people were, of course, stealing the tiki mugs if they were cool enough too. Yeah. So I think these restaurants were like, no, rather than this, $10 mug, take this 10-cent coaster, right?
Right.
So all these different things were souvenirs, but they became these tiny canvases for tiki branding, right? They were collectible. And they provided this opportunity for rich graphic storytelling. And obviously, you take these coasters home, you drop them in your house, or you let someone borrow your matches. And there were these little brand ambassadors. Whoa, where'd you get that from, right? Yeah. Super cool. And so, again, like we were talking about earlier, how did tiki culture start to spread throughout the country? Well, this plus the architecture and this interior design, like it was really this, dare I say, Todd, tsunami of
I see what you did.
Tiki look and feel that was just really going from one coast to the other, I think.
I think you nailed it there. And while there was a sort of cohesive look to this culture, there were not a lot of luminaries that were kind of coming out of that. The look was kind of like, make a typeface that looks kind of rough-hewn and bulby on the bottom or whatever. But there's one guy that I found who did some really interesting work. His name is Gabe Florian, like Florida, but with an N. And he was...
And no D.
and no D, yeah. Otherwise it would be Floridian.
It's like Floridian, but just Florian.
Florian,
yeah. Folks, we'll put this name on our website. It's easier than what Todd's making it out to be.
Oh, come on. Anyway, he he was the designer responsible for the luau that you mentioned a little earlier, and he produced some of the most beautiful serveware and objects that came out of mid-century Polynesian restaurants. And I would say he might be single-handedly responsible for so many mugs and salt and pepper shakers being lifted.
So how did he become the guy?
He was a set designer and and florist and florist, yeah, in Hollywood.
Okay,
yeah.
So he just knew he was just right place, right time, right skill set, and he leaned into that, and it took off.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay. All right, Todd. Well, in that case, you've convinced me. We need to go on a nationwide tiki road trip, I think.
Would love that. You know, we could rent an Airstream, deck it out as a rolling tiki bar.
Oh, yeah, and stock it with all the mugs we will acquire along the way.
Not sure of the sound of that. It'd probably be cheaper just to go to Hawaii then.
Huh, well, hey, have it your way. I'll bet the hotel you book will have a hell of a gift shop. Let me send an itinerary to you.
We'll be right back. Hi. We want to take a moment to mention that if you're enjoying this episode, we have an archive of topics ranging from the Olympics to movie posters,
Think Ghostbusters,
iconic images,
Think Bigfoot,
punk music,
The Ramones,
Saturday morning cartoons,
The Pink Panther,
and failed products like OK Soda. Visit our website at twodesignerswalkintoabar.com for full episode notes and visuals, the latest blog content, and to sign up for our newsletter.
Follow us on social media. We can be found on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Find the links on our website or search using the phrase "Two Designers Walk Into a Bar."
Most importantly, leave a review on Apple Podcasts. It helps more people like you find podcasts like this.
And tell a friend about us. Send them a link to our podcast from your listening platform of choice.
And if you're inclined, buy our merchandise. Stickers, coasters, magnets, t-shirts. We're designers. We make good stuff, and it helps support the show.
Get in touch. Use the contact form on our website or send an email to hello@twodesignerswalkintoabar.com.
We read every message we get. Honest.
And we're available for speaking gigs. Email us to learn more.
Okay, now, back to the bar.
Well, Todd, we are back in our tiki-decorated bar. It is so lovely, and I really appreciate the, round of Mai Tais. The flowers look great. The cut fruit tastes amazing, and, I'm really looking forward to this road trip we're going to take.
I think I like the idea of a road trip to hit all the tiki bars, and, along the way, we could also stop and see some interesting architecture and interior design that was influenced by tiki culture, too.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about that.
Okay, all right. So, tiki architecture, also known as Polynesian pop.
Ooh, I like that. Yeah.
I didn't coin that term, but I like that term, yeah. Like, think steep A-frame entrances. Think like tiki totems that you would normally see, lava rock walls, waterfalls, flaming torches, things like that. There was a motel chain that started back then called the Tahitian Village.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, I mean, we'd have to stay there. We could park the Airstream right out front.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and just a couple more people are probably familiar with. There's Aku Aku. It's a restaurant in Las Vegas. Hanalea Hotel in San Diego, which has this dramatic A-frame and tropical landscape.
I'm writing all these down. I'm mapping it as we speak.
Good. I do need you to scribe this so we'll remember them. And I think, Elliot, our trip wouldn't be complete if we didn't go to Palm Springs, don't you think?
Oh, I agree. All right, I'm adding that to our list as well.
I've only been to Palm Springs one time, and it was so beautiful. so cool with all the sort of mid-century modern and tiki culture, and so damn hot, as a matter of fact, too. It happens to be in a desert, people.
So you're saying it's not in Canada?
It is not in Canada, but it is a nice place in the U.S., in California. And it started to become a really popular destination, as a matter of fact, back in the 40s and 50s. And it was kind of like where celebrities would have a second home to go relax. And because it grew up in that time quickly, it became this haven for trend, for modernism, for tiki culture. So in addition to these cool modernist homes and these hotels and shops popping up everywhere, many added tiki bars and lounges, to their homes as well as bars.
Yeah, totally makes sense.
There's a really cool book that you should check out too. It's called Palm Springs Tiki, and it's by a German guy, Sven Kirsten, an American guy who lives in Palm Springs named Peter Maruzzi. And I know you're thinking, all right, German guy, interest in tiki. I mean, think how super exotic that is if you're from Hamburg, Germany. Like to be exposed to this.
Definitely.
Well, but what it does, it sort of presents this visual exploration of mid-century tropical paradise, right smack in the middle of the California desert. Because Palm Springs, probably more than any other place in the U.S., it really embraced this sort of mid-century fantasy and Polynesian.
Well, it was, as you mentioned, it was an escape for people.
Yeah.
So,
which was
right
what Palm
place,
Springs
right
was.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You sort of have this mental escape coupled with this physical escape.
Yeah, good point.
A retreat, shall we say.
Well,
and this was, I think the other thing we need to mention is Palm Springs at that time is sort of what we consider Vegas as being like now, right? It was sort of Vegas before Vegas was Vegas, not in the gambling sense, but in the it's not Los Angeles, it's somewhere else to go.
Yeah, it was far enough away resort that you could be sort of unknown if you were a celebrity.
Yeah, not get hassled.
Yeah. Anyway, so the book is just full of really cool objects and renderings and historical information for both lovers of tiki and mid-century Palm Springs.
Okay, Todd. Listening to you and talking about things like Vegas and celebrities, I am shocked, given your love of certain pop culture figures, shall we say, that you have not yet mentioned the most obvious milestone. And that would be the Jungle Room at Graceland.
Oh, yes. You're right.
Because nothing says exotic like a house in Tennessee.
Memphis, Tennessee, especially. A Gothic mansion. Yeah. No, you're right. Elvis added this sort of man cave to Graceland in the mid-1960s, and he wanted an atmosphere that reminded him of his time in Hawaii, filming Blue Hawaii and Aloha from Hawaii, and it came complete. Have you been to Graceland, Elliot?
I have not.
It didn't sound
feel
like your
you've
thing.
Been there
enough
been
for
there,
everybody.
I think enough for both of us. Yes. You actually got a handwritten letter from Elvis that says, "Todd, you've been here enough."
Stop it. Yeah.
So from beyond the grave.
It came like it had this built-in rock waterfall. It had green shag carpet on the floor and the ceiling, by the way, and it was
as one does,
as you do, and it was. Because it went through an extensive renovation in 1975. So I think that's when the shag carpet on the ceiling was added. But just think like heavy wood and black lacquered furniture and sort of exotic tchotchkes and ferns and plants. But it's paradise, man.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, for someone it is, I guess.
Yeah. Well, let me point out I want to correct bend to history here.
Okay.
Elvis never called it the Jungle Room. He called it the Den, and it was only called the Jungle Room once Graceland opened to the public in 1982. So there you go.
So they sort of needed a handle or a hook to pull people in a little bit.
Yeah, probably. But
that's great because that, again, is in the true spirit of tiki, right?
Yeah, it makes sense. And, when you see this little sort of den, it sort of does make sense. And I was reading in a Memphis paper that Elvis bought all of the furniture for the Jungle Room in about 30 minutes, which you could probably tell.
Yeah, hey, when you know, you know.
Yeah. And this was at a time when Elvis wasn't doing his best and couldn't get to the recording studio, so most of his last 2 records were actually recorded in the Jungle Room.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
the record company was desperate to get him to record new content, so they made a studio in his house. And as a matter of fact, you can check out a box set that was released in 2016 by Sony Legacy of the albums and the songs that were recorded, but this includes alternative cuts and studio chatter and bloopers. And anyway, it's called Way Down in the Jungle Room, and we'll post a picture of it.
Ooh, I like the idea of Elvis bloopers. Okay, so I think this really opens the door to talk about the broader influence on media and pop culture.
Yes.
Right? We're talking about music, we're talking about set designers and Hollywood
TV and film.
movies.
Yeah.
And yeah, you mentioned Elvis sort of bringing back. He was in Hawaii filming and he loves it. So, how did this again? This is just the media, of course, TV and movies. Just one more way to get inside people's heads and inside their living rooms,
Well,
right?
we talked about previously South Pacific. That was a huge deal back in the late 50s. Elvis's Blue Hawaii, we talked about that in the early 60s. You know, all of these things, they were just underscoring specifically South Pacific, Polynesia, Hawaii equals exotic. And, you know, I would really be ashamed of myself if I didn't mention one of my favorite TV shows of all time, and Gilligan's Island, you know?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Todd, I would be ashamed of you, too.
Well, from 64 to 67, clearly was influenced by South Pacific culture. So, I mean, there's just, what can I say?
Oh, gosh. I mean, the list is so long.
Yeah.
Right? So I think we can say tiki style was very much in the mainstream at this point, right? Basically a shorthand way of saying exotic or foreign, right? Something exciting and interesting and unique. But unless you were a veteran of World War II or Korea, or maybe you were there filming a movie like we talked about, you really had no firsthand experience of this culture if you were Joe and Jane Doe living in Middle America, right?
Yeah, which made it kind of, think about it, easy for the mainstream designers to sort of lift and populate Disney's Jungle Cruise that we already talked about, the Enchanted Tiki Room. I mentioned in the previous episode the Polynesian Village Resort from Walt Disney World in 1971 was open. It's fully themed and it's what it was serving up tiki to us, right?
Mm-hmm. Disney tiki, even better.
Well, yeah, Disney tiki, because, it was as...
This is pre-Moana, everybody.
Yeah, it was as authentic as, Adventureland was to African villages and things. But
that's not authentic?
Well, Okay, have you heard of Wiki Wachi?
Oh, in Florida?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, so sort of like, if I remember correctly, you fact check me on this, wasn't exactly a hula girl thing, but in Florida, didn't they have mermaid shows?
They did, yeah, underwater mermaid shows.
I love it.
Yeah. So Wiki Wachi is actually Native American. It comes from the Seminole tribe, but they were like, hey, Native Americans, that's kind of exotic. How about we do a mermaid show?
Yeah, maybe it should be called Sneaky Peeky.
Anyway, go to Wiki Wachi if you're in that area of Florida. It is a state park now, but all right. We could go on and on and on and on about all the tiki influences, but just suffice it to say that tiki is an enduring style. It has been interpreted into multiple design languages, typographic, illustrative, architectural, textiles, and it's still alive today. As a matter of fact, the original and largest tiki festival in the world, called Tiki Oasis, is in its 25th year, happening in San Diego this year.
Hold on. Okay.
You're writing that down? We got to stop there.
To our itinerary. Yeah. The Airstream needs to pull in there too.
You kind of nailed it earlier. It's sort of this rare convergence of fantasy and leisure and consumerism that touch nearly every design field. And while the cultural accuracy of tiki is kind of contested, And probably should be.
Yeah.
The design language remains one of the most recognizable and enduring 20th century American style exports. And we took our interpretation about parts of the world to other parts of the world, to Europe, for instance. So
Yeah, so it really became our own exotic export, right?
yeah, right. It was filtered through the American view.
And now that you say that, speaking of exports, how about another round of cocktails made with booze and fruits from other lands? What do you say?
Feels like more money is about to be exported from my wallet.
Hey, just another day in paradise.
All right, join us for our next episode. We're going to talk a little bit more about some of the artists in the resurgence of the tiki culture.
See you soon, everybody.
All right, we're hitting the road.